Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second episode of our podcast, Into the Verse. And with us today, we have Mr. Akhil Meshram, who is the CMO of Hippo Homes. And we also have with us our very own Mr. Kanav Singla, who is the CEO of Metadome. Akhil, why don't you go ahead and tell our viewers how your journey has been, what you have been doing at Hippo, and how has the complete CMO journey has been for you? What kind of things you have been doing?
Yeah. So see, most of my experience is in the FMCG industry. Okay. So after I completed my MBA, I joined P&G. So bulk of my experience is handling FMCG goods and selling products, right, in multiple countries. So I am currently leading the marketing division here, marketing department here as a chief marketing officer. The fundamental role or fundamental expectation really is to transform the overall business to do much more, understanding what the customer needs are and deliver the brand promise of how do we make their lives better, simpler, and their choices easier, right, through Hippo Homes. And in this is a very interesting industry which excited me a lot, actually.
So you mentioned one thing about the sector or the domain being unorganized, right? Yes. Can we dive a bit deeper into that? How does it compare with other domains, right?
So see, first is this industry is very or highly engaged in very high involvement kind of an industry, right? Yeah. Just like, for example, you're buying a car. You spend a lot of time researching on car and everything, and then you decide on the brand. It's not an immediate purchase, right? For example, you're buying a dal or apparels, clothes. You will immediately decide you like the color, you like the design, you go and buy it. Here you're talking about a very big ticket item, right? Home. You will invest once in your lifetime, right? Maybe twice in a lifetime if you are well to do, right? But it's usually once in a lifetime you will do. So it's a very high involvement, very high aspirational, right? It's a sense of achievement when you go into your own home. So it's a highly aspirational, and customers are highly, I would say, unaware of what the things they need to buy. So they rely completely on influencers like architect and interior designer, right, to enable that purchase. Right. And that's where the industry kind of plays the big role or the gap in the industries right now. There is, because customers are not even aware of what different options are, right?
Let's say I'm trying to buy my home and trying to fix tiles, lighting for it. Then it's sometimes it happens that I know a few local stores, and then there is an online solution which provides the whole thing end to end. How does that behavior of the customer change? Or it must be difficult for the customer to adapt to a completely new platform that gives an end to end solution. So how are you tackling that?
The issue I would say is it's basically not just the product but the services which goes along with that in this market, right? No one wants to buy only product because they need to arrange for the laborer, the contractor to lay the tiles, or plumber to make sure your bathroom fittings are fixed in, painter to make sure, or carpenter to do your woodwork and all that, right? And that's where the new age companies, right, they are coming in to deliver the end-to-end solution. But what I'm observing right now, even though they are delivering end-to-end solution, the product options and varieties, right, they are limited right now because they are into only services. Then there are good companies who are actually into products, right, which is basically a dedicated dealers for Polar, for Jaguar, right, for even Simero or Kajaria, right? You have a dedicated dealers or dedicated mom and pop store which caters into limited options, limited assortment, but they do that, right? There is no one who's actually doing it both, product and services. Here you will have an option to actually redo homes. And when I do redo homes, it's basically either a new home or even a renovation as well, right? There is a dedicated team of interior designers sits out of every stores which we have opened up as well as opening up in pretty soon, which will cater to your need, work with you to figure out what the right design is going to look like, right? And give you all the options from the stores, right? So you don't have to actually go to the multiple store to figure out what the right selection is.
So physical stores should be the main focus point, right? Because something like home improvement, as you said, right? The people cannot just rely on an application because, right?
Yes. So, no, the thing is, see, there is one thing which is called a discovery phase, right? So discovery phase will always come in through online, wherein you can understand what different prices are, different options are. In fact, we are trying to bring in technology there so that you can reimagine your home online, right? So there is a buy a room, you can do the selection with a certain preset, right? And Metadome has actually helped us, and I'll talk a little bit more on that one as well too going forward, wherein you can actually pre-select different options and get a broad view of how your bathroom is going to look like, how your living room is going to look like, right? That will give you a indication and a notion as well of how the things are going to look like in general. But like you rightly said, Sagar, it needs experience, right? I have often seen people come to store to finally visualize what their dream home is going to look like.
I would like to understand Kanav's point of view on that, because Metadome has built such home decor solutions before, right? What do you think, Kanav, on that?
I think to what Akhil was saying, right, that there is this discovery element in the buying journey. And from what we have seen, Akhil, in the consumer behavior from 2016, 2017 till now, a lot has changed. The first thing that has changed is that the number of consumers who are looking to improve their home has gone up. That was maybe not the case in the domestic market, where people were looking to improve their homes and were doing that search online. Home improvement was a concept which was mostly done through carpenters or local players. And used to have these hardware, or we call them hardware shops. And you used to go there, people, and tile, lights, that's how the process used to. And what we saw was that there are some brands who had come in with products of their own, and they started with online journeys first. App journey, that you go there, you have sofa, living room, design, you can buy products from there. But buying decor online has always been a problem, and it always got limited to just discovery. That you see something online, but end of the day, the buying decision is only going to happen with the element of touch and feel. And touch and feel has been missing in the online concepts, and a lot of people have tried different ways to bring that touch and feel online, but nothing comes close to what you can see in the actual store. So, but there is some merit to having an online experience as well, because if you don't have an online experience, for example, if Hippo doesn't have a store in Gurgaon, let's say, so I don't know what products Hippo offers. So even if the store is there, I don't know the store is there. So that has always been a challenge for brands, that how do I get people to the store also is something which I need to work on. Because I might have a store, but I need to then advertise about what all can you do at the store. Correct. And that starts from maybe my website or my app or some experience online which can reach to a lot more people than what the local footfall of a store. How do people how much time do people take to decide from different stages of where they are? Let's say if it's a ground up rebuild of their house. In your experience, how much time it takes for them to decide that?
It really up to the imagination of individual during the initial phase of how the home or even a room is going to look like. And that imagination could be different even for a husband and a wife. Maybe a wife will be imagining something else and they are looking at the same thing, same kind of material. And the husband is imagining something else. It's very difficult to put it down. Technology right now is enabled through 3D rendering and all that, right? That's the first step of that technology, right? And that's where the disconnect usually is. Oh no, I think if we add here, and that's where the time usually gone in terms of doing multiple iterations, right? Because you will always, because you are doing it maybe first and probably the last time. Right? If you're doing, you want to get it right, as much as possible, and you are unsure of things. And if you're unsure of things, you keeps on iterating. So someone, either his husband or even designers or even companies, they try to put the cap, after 3 rounds, just stop, because it's a continuous process, right? So design phase or getting, family together Even husband, wife and kid, for example, will always have to agree on one standard. One is the most time consuming element. After that, what happens is the production and everything starts, and there it kind of ends. And again, it depends on the project size, it depends on whether you're talking about full home, then of course it will be even longer period of time. Talking about one room, one bathroom, smaller time, but the extent or the proportion of that continues to change.
And what role do you think architects play in this?
So see, architect plays a very, very big role. And I say architect as well as interior designer. What happens is usually what I've observed right now, architects comes into for a big project or a ground up project in a way. Interior designers are much more for apartments, right, and all that. So I would combine them as a key influencers for this industry. Again, in Hippo we call them individual home buyers, right? Or any consumer. Those individual home buyers rely completely on influencers, architect and interior designer, to tell them what is right, what is wrong. They probably will go with some Pinterest design and will say, I want this and all that, but I have this much budget. But these are the guys who are actually bring them to the reality that maybe the cost is too little for such this thing, or itne mein itna hi milega kind of a thing, right? So these architect and interior designer plays a very big role from both design point of view, from all three elements actually, from design point of view, from cost point of view, as well as product selection point of view.
That is something which is a very interesting insight, which Akhil just mentioned, that the husband and the wife, they don't agree on something, even if the render is shown to them, the visualization is shown to them. And that, do you see that also happening at the architect stage, where the design of the room or the layout of the room is something which is still a visualization, like a floor plan visualization, 2D CAD visualization?
No, that happens during that stage, and that's where, like you're saying, Kanav, the architect or the capability, right, of a designer as well as architect plays a big role. What capability they have to convince them, right? Understanding what their needs are and all that, right? And I think technology will evolve further, because even if from earlier there was nothing, then there was 2D render, 3D renders and all that, right? But in 3D render, the churn out rate is still limited in terms of how much you can, multiple iteration you can do, right? And that's where the new technology in partnering with Metadome, I think we try starting to do as well, which is you visualize through that immersive experience finally how it will look like, right, in the store, right? Because that's where you can close the design process much faster and also give customer what exactly they will be getting at the end of it, right? Because in the end, both of them or one family needs to be convinced completely that this is what I'm getting finally, right? With multiple options, and they can do it in a very quick way, right? They can put in the VR headset, figure out what the layout they want, select different options, and imagine. In fact, I'll tell you one story because we have it still in Greater Noida, right? So one couple came in, and they were sure of what exactly they would want. All right. So they were figuring and discussing, I want this, I want, this color. Pastel color is in vogue right now, so we want a, pastel color, minimalist kind of a design and all those things, right? And then we put them into, the VR room. We have, let experience, you yourself experience, right, what you are talking about, right? They said, let's go see, right? We had this option. They started selecting multiple products, right, multiple things, and then they realized that there are certain colors which goes with different color options goes well together, right, versus their earlier version, right? Different decor items they can start picking and choosing, which was there in our store as well, that goes well with that overall design, right? So it's not just the normal 3D render which we are talking about, it's also the immersive experience of how the room etc. look like. And then there is a full family sitting there looking at the TV, mama, I want something else. Right? Oh, though, let's try this particular option. It goes well with the overall design, and mom kind of agreeing and all those things. And then they finally finalized the overall design, and then they were happy that they went through. So that also enabled and aided customers or consumers in general throughout their journey. It's a very unsure experience initially, right? And you are giving that additional dimension of surety through this VR experience, right, or XR experience, which will help them make a very informed decisions and go with the confidence that what they are seeing is probably what they will get, right? Otherwise, there is always this kind of niggling doubt in their mind, right? Whether I'm after spending so much money, whether I'm getting things right or not.
And I have personally gone through that journey myself, where I've seen a sample flat. I've seen like a book given to me by a builder in my hand that this house can look like this, and it was just a catalog of photos, renders of that place only, but it was done by the builder, the designer. And for me, like, even after looking at the sample flat, even after looking at those pictures, like as a consumer, it was not enough. There was still a lot of questions I had in my mind that, how is the balcony going to look like?
Exactly.
Or how is the kitchen going to look like? And how is the bathroom going to look like? In how we look at design and visualization separately. So we look at design separately because the design process used to happen in pen and paper earlier. And pen and paper, I also mean the drawings, like people drawing on SketchUp or Revit or all the other architectural tools, which will just give you layouting. You can call it visualization, but visualization, at least for us, means that in that room, you have put a infographic of a sofa, but which sofa? What color? What wall? What floor? What ceiling? What lighting? A combination of all that is what the design visualization is. And the design can happen still on paper, but the visualization cannot. And that's to your point that the cognitive load of looking at an image versus looking at a virtual reality experience. I think it's also important for us to explain to our audience what is virtual reality.
So VR is basically an immersive experience. Now, if I have to simplify it, if you are watching a 3D render of your house on your 2D screen, right? Instead of having it on a 2D screen, you just have it on two screens, which are the screens of the headset, and then the movement that is there, it will be controlled by your head. So the combination of both of these things kind of mimics an immersive behavior. So you get an image for left eye and another image for right eye, and then you move your head, and the image moves based on your head movement. So you kind of feel that everything is there, just like how you see 3D movies, right? There would be one red colored image that comes to this eye, and then another image comes to this eye, and you see that image is popping out. Similarly, virtual reality also helps in getting that immersive side. We were talking about how that customer who was planning something earlier, and then they experienced the home in the VR headset, and then they changed their decisions based on that, right? And considering the fact that the home improvement or the home decor journey requires a physical aspect, right? Which means that you have to have stores, right? And this kind of eliminates the procurement bottleneck that is there in VR. Like, not everybody can afford VR, but as a brand who is providing these solutions, you can always have a VR headset, right? And it will help you, and that actually fits very well. And even before, let's say, down the line, 10 years down the line, maybe everybody will have VR headsets, but this kind of combination is even valid today, right? It is. So that kind of struck my mind.
Yeah, and I think just to add to what Sagar is saying, so we have always at Metadome thought of visualization at just not visual, but sensory also.
Yes.
And what I mean by sensory is that can I experience the touch? Can I experience the feel?
Correct.
So, and a lot of advancements now have happened in the the robotics world, where earlier the robots were only able to mimic the physics of movement. They were not able to mimic the physics of vision, but then autonomous cars came in, where they were able to mimic the perception of vision also. They could see as a human. Now robots can feel the touch of a human as well through haptics. So I think haptics is a topic which is very undiscovered, very less talked about, and I think categories like home. So I always used to think this while designing any home experience. That a sofa is not about look and feel.
Exactly.
A sofa is about how I sit on it, how much it compresses, how much is the upthrust, and how much space I have for my arms, and where will I keep my coffee mug. And if I am buying that with something which costs, let's say, 1, 2, 3 lakhs or in that range, even if I take a virtual reality experience of that sofa,
I think that's actually gonna be the next phase of technological advancement and evolution, I would say. Taking example of sofa as well, you can design the same standard of sofa with same dimension, but a texture of that material which is which covers that sofa, right? For example, it's a blue color, it's a velvet compared to a different texture, right? Then your feel is different, right? And you can only do it when you go to a physical store and probably touch it and probably get that experience just by material, right? The comfort level changes as well, right? I go back to tiles, for example, right? There are some tiles who are anti-skid, anti-slippery. Then there are some tiles will give you nice feel as well, little bit smoother and all that. So that will come in only when you experience it, and that could be the next level of technological advancement in terms of how the the touch and feel, to make it fully immersive, right? And then you start realizing whether I'm getting that level of comfort or not, right? Same thing, I think perhaps through the lighting as well as through that design as well. For example, if I switch on all the lights, the texture of my wall probably will change, correct? Versus it's off, right? There is some utility items as well. For example, there are different flutes of design, there are different wall designs which are coming, which is flute based, right? But then when it's off versus on, then things also changes. So the feel of that can be explored further, right? With the when you are in the physical store, Sagar, like you were saying, so that you can imagine how it is going to look like in my hand at the first step. And probably 5-10 years down the line, when I can get that experience in the initial phase of the design itself, how I pick this material, put it into my experience, right? Make a full design out of that exact material, and I know how it will feel like to me, right? That is going to be the next level in my view, to make the experience of a customer truly immersive and really help them take the choice, the choice to be the right choice for the first time, right?
But do you think consumers will be able to adapt to something like this?
See, again, we were chatting as well earlier. Initially, there is always resistance of change, right? There is always inertia. There is a traditional way of doing things, and people are difficult to kind of adapt. But look at where we are. Maybe 5 years down, 5-10 years back, no one would have thought. Maybe 10 years, 15 years, like everything you can do it on mobile phone with iPhone and everything, right? You're always carrying this handheld device, and maybe Nokia at that time and all that, right? Now everything is there. So there is always an evolution and change which happens, and I think the adaptability or adoption of technology is becoming faster and faster, right? And that adoption is faster even for an older generation now.
I think the question is, where is the consumer today?
Yes.
Yeah. No, consumer today is really in the first stage where it's actually a 2D to 3D render is what they're visualizing it on a paper right now.
So it's just a render, you were saying?
Render is what they're getting.
Not even interactive.
Not even interactive. I've not seen. I think Hippo, with partnership with Metadome, is the first one who have actually entered into this VR experience zone, right? To make sure they are actually, consumer actually understand it and see it themselves, how things are going to look like, right? So that they can make informed decisions and quick decision, a right decision for them. So I think this is the next step. Every consumer needs to experience as well, right? And that's where I think the next evolution is going to happen. From a 3D render, 2D to 3D render is what I'm seeing most of it. Most of the players are actually providing right now, right? But then this giving that experience, a full 360-degree experience, is the next step. And of course, the haptics, like you were saying, there's a new word which I learned today. Thank you, Kanav. is where the next evolution definitely has to come, right? And you never know, it can be faster as well.
So I think very good insight. I think today the AR experiences that we have, right, they are just, you get an image, you get a 3D model, you place it, that's it. But from what Akhil is saying, feels like it has to be much more aligned with what the room is, much more recommendative, right? It should recommend what kind of things, like let's say I'm pointing my camera to my floor and I place this coffee table, but then suddenly the camera recognizes that okay, this is not what you should buy, but because I see that your sofas are of different color and your room has this kind of beige aesthetic or something like that, then it's better for you to get this. So building experiences that are more augmenting would be a better thing.
No, absolutely. I think a big chunk of home improvement, like the discovery part of it at least, is all web-based. Is what you also mentioned earlier, and what we have also seen. And anything that can engage the customer while they are in their home is a plus to what we are trying to solve at the store.
Yeah.
And tools like this definitely help. How much they help, how much of the discovery of products we can attribute to AR, that is again, I think everybody's trying to answer that question today. But I don't think AR alone can solve this to an extent where I can help the consumer discover the right product or the right design in the right budget in their home. I think there has to be, like, at least from a technology and a product standpoint, there has to be some level of recommendation, like you mentioned. There has to be some level of scene understanding as well. Like, I need to give some input of my home or my room or my house to like an ML algorithm or an AI algorithm, and tell that algorithm that this is what my input house is. And then based on that, it can suggest a few inspirations or a few designs to me. And then based on those inspirations, I can select product buckets based on my range. And then I can probably say that, okay, this is what might look good. I want to visit the store, visualize this product assortment in my house and see how it will all pan out in the end.
Right. It doesn't make sense to rely on one individual to give me like 5 designs for a huge amount of price, that too for waiting for 2 weeks. It doesn't make sense at all, right? If there's a solution that can give me those designs immediately, like I click my pictures, then I reimagine my home in some other aesthetic.
Just one caution there, Sagar. I don't think it's just the design, but there are a lot of technical things which goes into. That's where I think the designers and architects probably can play at the role, right? Because you don't know different things which was going on from the technical point of view, right? I think they can help there. And in fact, this tool can help interior designers and architects as well. So it's not just the end users or an individual.
So that is what I was coming to earlier. Like, if I look at consumer, you mentioned that the biggest consumer problem is time. Anything which helps them reduce time, they are happy to pay a premium for that. And anything which helps them visualize the final output, their experience will only get amplified if we are able to show them what it finally looks like. Because seeing is believing for the consumer. So the old saying, "Jo dikhta hai, wo bikhta hai," is the belief system that everybody runs with. So if I solve for time and if I solve for seeing and visualization, I'm good. Right? As a brand, that is what Hippo Homes is offering to the customer now. I will solve for time also, and I will solve for visualization.
Let's say I go to an interior designer and I have 10 designs in mind from Pinterest, and then he comes up with 2-3 designs of my house. So what does that process look like, and what are the gaps, right? Like you were saying.
See, it's a ever evoluting kind of a process, right? So it keeps on changing as well, and it also depends on the capability of the individual, honestly speaking, and how professional they are, right? But see, it all starts with your 2D floor plan. Honestly, you have certain ideas in your mind, right? That you want to basically, you want certain design, you want certain do's and don'ts, right? I want to make sure whenever I'm doing a wardrobe, it has to be a walk-in wardrobe. I want a space for my watches. So there are must-have and nice-to-have kind of. You try to put that list at least in your mind or at least in a piece of paper, when you're having the conversation, right? Then, but it all starts with, the floor plan, which is basically boring stuff but important stuff, which is the dimensions of the room, the layout, where the where you cannot touch the structural wall, where you can touch or do some modifications. So those kind of technical aspects comes into play. All right, what is the floor to ceiling height, right? Whether this POP is done, not done. So those kind of things will come into play. Right, and then based on that structural dimensions and the requirement, right, then the interior designers or architect basically start recommending what the 2D or 3D kind of a design kind of look like, depending upon what do you want, what do you don't want. All right, and because again the kitchen, for example, right, will have a certain, when we are talking about modular kitchen, the definition of modular itself means a standard size. So there is a standard size of the shelves and all that, right? I mean, not a standard size, but there are in blocks it comes, right? And therefore fitting it into that particular blocks. Again, these are the technical elements which goes into play. I mean, as a consumer, you would want, I want a nice, lime color or, acrylic sheet or acrylic design for my kitchen with an island on top and with nice hob and chimney. This is the color combination I want. But the technical aspect of the dimensions, where exactly you will put the microwave, whether it's a built-in hob and chimney, right, where it's a built-in microwave. So those comes into play as well, and then he will aid in terms of giving you the design, making sure space is also utilized properly, or you want some extra space, storages and all that things, which are usually boring but important stuff when you start living in a house, right? So that's where I think the value addition comes into play. When it comes to consulting with interior designer and the architects in general, right? And again, in Hippo, the VR experience room, architect and interior designer, they can also come and convince, right?
Might be different requirement. There are different budgets. Then you have to connect to a designer who has different skill set, maybe different bandwidth. So there are so many problems, right, which have different levels at which it affects the consumer, the brand, and the people who are selling these goods, and the labor as well. What are the biggest problems that you have identified from this complete pipeline, right? There must be some largest problems that you must be focusing on, right?
No, I think, say the problem is really on twofold, right? One is the convenience of convenience plus the quality of the product itself, right? Because there are no one particular place where you can find everything, right? Because the journey itself is long. I mean, if someone has to do a home right from ground up, it will take 6 to 8 months or 9 months easily, right? From tiling to, it was a step by step. Start to execution, right? Because it's not like you
end of execution.
Yes, end of it once you enter, right? Like ready to enter in a home, right?
Achha, okay.
Right? Because it's not like it's not a parallel process as well. There are some steps you need to do first, right? You can't, for example, paint the house and do the wiring later. You need to do wiring and electrical first inside of it and then do the paint. You can't start off your kitchen until your tiles are done, right? So there are step-by-step process, right? Some steps needs to come earlier and then subsequently few steps will come in, right? Kitchen and modular wardrobes you can do parallelly. And once kitchen etc. is done, then you start bringing in white goods, right, at home, right? As well as, the lighting etc. can come in. So there are step-by-step process essentially, right? So with all these steps, right, the important thing is there are different markets for these places. So finding the genuine quality, right, as well as good quality product, original product at one place was the biggest issue in my view, right, as well as what we are hearing it from the consumer as well. Plus the shopping experience in all these were also not that conducive, right? There was like, if you go to a small shop, they have very limited range, right? So you need to say, okay, I don't like it, then you go to another shop, then you go to another shop. You spend your entire weekend, you've not selected anything. So sometimes what happens is, because of this time gone, because of this, you sometimes decided whatever is the next one, I'll just go and buy from there. So you're compromising. So that compromise one should not do when they are spending. And I was also sharing typically a homeowner for a new home spend around 10 to 15% of their budget, of apartment budget, into their home improvement budget, right? For example, if someone is buying a crore of a house or of an apartment, the typically spend is roughly around 10 to 15 lakhs, right? So the budget is huge. So the investment is huge. Why a customer or consumer needs to...
This is all for products.
Products as well as, products and services are quite limited that way, right? But typically 10 to 15% is roughly the number is, right? So why a consumer needs to compromise because of unavailability of a product or assortments are not good and all that. So that, I think, is an issue, and timely delivery also sometimes becomes an issue as well, right? For example, if your laborer are there and your material did not come on time, then laborer or the contractor will not do anything, right? Or you send half material, right? Whatever is the electrical, for example, if you need to install 6 door knobs and you just delivered 3, so the carpenter will just install 3 door knobs and will just stay there for a full day, and you need to pay the carpenter for the daily wage, and your job is not done. Right. So on-time delivery also plays big role, because the schedule changes, right? Then it will get extended further, because like I was saying, it's a sequential process sometimes. That's the first challenge. The second one was much more onto this services, all right? Because you want product to be there, the services associated with that, if there is a compromise on that, right? For example, if I gave a contractor a job, I gave half money, right? We call them payment puri kaam adha adhura, right? You do the payment first, and then contractor is gone, you all, right? Then you are chasing the contractor, abhi ab to aa jao, kaam complete kar do, aadha kiya hai, right? So these are the challenges which they are basically getting, right? The first one, which multiple markets they are basically going, the challenge is basically naukri karo ya ghar banao, right? Because you are spending so much time in market hopping and figuring out what the right product is, your sometimes jobs get affected, right? Because it's like a full-time job for you to do the home improvement stuff, right? And then the quality of the product, right, also comes into play. So services is the second aspect, where you want to make sure along with the product, you give that additional quality of the service or assurance that everything will happen on time, right? Will add that particular challenge, which will make the home building from the stressful experience to a pleasant experience. So today is very stressful and frustrating experience as well. So you don't want to compromise onto such a big spend, right? Is the bottom line.
Is the designer just their cost, not what they are charging, is the cost of their time, and that is subjective. Tomorrow I can become a designer, my cost is $1,000 an hour, and I can start charging on consultation. And then there will be some designer who is like, I will give you my consultation for free and not charge you anything, but actually end up giving me better designs than somebody who's charging $1,000 an hour.
Yeah.
And that is also very subjective. So overall, if you look at it, I think the only constant that I could, figure out so far, and I may be wrong, maybe you can tell me, is that in all cases there is a need for visualization. Even if that is coming from the customer or it's coming from the designer. Customer because the customer has to buy, they have to pay.
Yeah.
And designer because they have to close.
Yeah.
So they need to give some level of affirmation to the customer that boss, this is how it will look, before they can actually move to the next process of execution.
Yeah.
So I think that is the only constant that I could think of from where the industry is today.
Yeah, definitely. I think in the end is the deal which you close through customer affirmation, right? The leads which you close, right? And visualization helps enable that massively, right? And it's not about cost per customer. It's also about how quickly you start to close the designs, so that the more time you can cater into new projects versus spending 3 weeks, a month with the same customer or same consumer.
So do we measure that today?
So see, as we are not individual designer company and all that, right?
Have you thought about like a virtual concierge like a virtual designer concierge where people who can't come to your store, they can book like a Zoom meeting with a designer, and a designer can go on a call with them and showcase to them, the products in whatever form, shape.
Could be something we can explore. And that could be the first touch point, for example, or a closing touch point. If, for example, not everyone can, again, most of the customer comes on weekends, right? And weekdays the productivity goes down. I think because you cannot travel, working couple, this, that and everything, right? So weekend become very precious, right? So I think that's the way for us to improve the productivity of a designer and utilize better time. If we use such kind of facilities by which they can at least get either in the initial phase or at the end phase, right? Because you already had multiple round of discussion, whatever is the minor changes, you do it virtually, you show them and probably try to get close, something to explore as well. So no, this idea came to my mind as well on which touch point we can probably use it.
I was just thinking, because if we try to solve for time at both the stakeholder level, both the designer and the customer, it looks like that time is that replenishable currency, which has priceless value. And we can't put a number to the designer time and the customer time, but we can maybe tell the customer that we value your time. So maybe some part of your journey we can do virtually. And once that is done, then you come to our store and we will have everything ready for you.
Works.
So something like that to explore. We will also think more about it. Great.
Good.
So we are at the end of the podcast. Very insightful pointers into what are the problems into the home improvement space, and I think Kanav might also have come up with a lot of ideas on what we can work on, what things are there in this industry. How has your experience been?
It was lovely chatting with both of you actually, right? I also got a glimpse of how technology can help enable it. So it was a good conversation. Also, I think we now know what we need to be kind of doing as well. So looking forward to the solution going forward.
Great. No, absolutely. I think a lot of, like you mentioned, a lot of ideas in my mind. I'm going to bother you a lot more often now on some of these ideas.
No problem.
And thanks for sharing your thoughts with us. It was lovely having you.
Yes.